So let's talk about flexbox. I would like to play around with the fundamentals of how to create a simple but efficient and scalable layout for your web application. I'm purely going to talk about flexbox. I'm not going to mess around with gridbox, with any other strategy. I'm going to use flexbox because it's very powerful and it's easy to grasp, and it will solve 95% of your problems in regards to layout, right? So let's play an example. First thing you may notice, and you will see that I will stick to that strategy for most of the workshops, is that I will keep my Visual Studio on the left-hand side, and I will keep my browser on the right-hand side. Why? Because this is the way I like to work, generally speaking. That may not work for everybody, I respect that, but for me, it's very convenient because I have all the information I need to work efficiently. I don't need to keep switching tabs or windows, right? So for example, if I change something, you see, it gets updated easily, right? I'll be honest, I don't even have to press Control Save. I don't have to save my files because this is happening automatically. You don't know how to do that yet, probably, but we'll talk about that. And if you are very curious and you're anxious to learn how to auto-save the files, there is a video on YouTube that explains you how to do it in our YouTube channel. Cool, let's crack on. So I'm going to simulate your gallery. So I'm going to drop some boxes and we'll see how to sort them out. I'm going to talk about a different topic, not TV shows, but just to do something different. So yesterday I was a bit upset with Chandon because he beat me at ping pong. But this morning we had a very interesting conversation about martial arts, fighting and things like that. So I'm going to display a list of martial arts boxes, like your TV shows, right? It's the same principle, and we'll see how to arrange them a bit on the screen. So let's start doing something fundamental. So I'm going to create a div, and the first div is boxing, right? So it should show up somewhere. Obviously, we don't really see if that's a box or what's that. I'm going to add a class name called item, if you want, right? Because that's an item, even though this is very generic. Also, you know that to play with Flex, we need a container. We need an element surrounding your boxes, right? Div class name what? Container, for example, right? Cool. As you can see from the UI point of view, I didn't get anything very exciting, right? But let's add a few more boxes. So we got boxing, we got Muay Thai, and here was where I failed with the spelling. Is that correct? Why? Like that? Yeah. Cool. And then what else? Judo? Well, anyway. Yeah, whatever, right? Jiu-jitsu, right? I'll spell that perfectly in a minute. Right, so I got three martial arts, but at the moment I don't get the feeling that this is a layout, right? Just three words, one after the other. So let's bring some colors just to see where we are. Because we have the class name already, now it should be quite easy to style that. So for example, I can put an item. Let's change the background color to green, for example. Oops, green, for example, right? Okay, I got some colors on the screens. But then let's add a bit more styling. So let's add some padding. You remember what padding is? What's that? Padding?
Padding is on the edges.
Correct. It's inside of the green box, right? So let's add some gutter between the text and the border of the box. Yes, to make it a bit more elegant. 30 pixels. You see? Correct. And then what else? Let's add a margin. What's the margin? The margin. Yes, exactly. It's out of the border. It's the space between your house and your neighbor's house, right? That's the margin.
So padding is inside.
Correct.
Margin is outside.
Absolutely. That's it. Margin 30 pixels. You see? Now it gets better, right? You just start feeling that these are boxes. You want to add a border? Yes, let's add a border. 10 pixels. So when we add a border, it's important to notice that border the shorthand, which is what I'm doing, accepts three properties. First of all, the width of the border, then the style of the border, could be solid, could be dotted, could be whatever, you see, and then the color, right? So as I say, we can change that to dashed, you know, whatever. Bring your creative side. Right, so I got three boxes. I got three boxes already. Unfortunately, they get displayed by default one after the other because this is how HTML works, right? If you display some divs, div 1, div 2, div 3, they get displayed one after the other, which makes sense, right? Because if you can make a parallelism. So in the code side, you got 3 lines. In the browser side, you got 3 lines as well. So it makes sense to some extent. But now, because I want to build the layout, I want to put them alongside, right? I want to have one single row, and I want to display the martial art styles one nearby the other. So you should know that already. So what property gives us the chance to display the elements in one single row? On the container, right? So we got the container. Let's add a class name here. Let's add a rule, container, and then what? Display flex. Boom. You see? So with display flex, the elements, I can highlight them on the right-hand side. I know the resolution is not the best one, right? Usually in a professional environment, you used to have a proper 27-30 inch screen. So this kind of things are way easier to perform. But anyway. Right, so let's see, yeah, the container. You see the container, the highlighted box is one line. So as you already know, because we explained that on Monday, we can prototype. We can do quick styling, non-persistent styling on the browser. So look what happens if I comment the display flex. Right? This is a good way to figure out what's going on and how to prototype things, right? Let me change the margin a bit. I don't need that much space, right? And if I change the margin, you will notice, and that may be unexpected, that I have an empty space on the right-hand side. Why is that? Yeah, that's true. The margin is smaller, but even though by using display flex, I may expect all the items, you know, to.
You haven't told it to do 100%.
That's correct. Guy is absolutely right. We haven't told the size, which is the size of each box, right? So even, I know it's hard to see, but if I highlight the first item, look at the width, 128 pixels. The second one, 154. The third one, 114. So this is a chaos, right? We don't have any strategy. If we want to make sure that all the 3 elements have the same dimensions, same width, what do we need to do? Correct. Alex is right. So we need to go to the child and say flex 1. You see? Now the layout is sexy. We got 3 items with the same width. If you don't trust me, first item, the width is 176 pixels. Second item, 176. The third item, 176.
Flex one decides what the average size should be.
No. Flex 1 means each item spans 1 column. So boxing spans 1 column. Muay Thai spans 1 column. And judo expands 1 column. How many columns our row has? 3. Correct. That's easy, right? But then I'm going to make it a bit more complicated. Because I love boxing, I'm going to make it more prominent on the screen. So I need a bit more space probably. What I'll try to do, I'm going to add a class name on boxing. Obviously, as you can figure out, you can have multiple classes for each item, right? So I'm going to add a new class name, boxing, and I'm going to change the flex. I'm going to change the flex instead of 1 to 2. Do you think what will be the reaction after the change?
Double.
Double, correct. Look, flex 2, look at the boxing. You see, I know that the resolution is horrible here, and it's very hard to see that. But look, the bigger the resolution is, the easier to understand that principle. So if you notice now it's obvious, right? So the first box is wider than the rest. Why? Because of the following. How many virtual columns our container has? No? 4. Exactly. Exactly. Why? Because the first item has flex 2. So the first item spans 2 columns, plus the second item spans 1 column, plus the third item spans 1 column. So even though visually speaking, we still have 3 columns, I agree on that. Technically speaking, internally, under the hood, we have 4 columns.
Question, if you put it on item flex 2, would it do all of them?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Let's do that. What happened if we put flex 2? Will it be any change, visually speaking? Why not? Exactly, exactly. I can put here 1,000,000 if I want. Look, 100. Nothing changes.
It will make it the same size.
The same size, yes.
Double size of weight.
Correct, correct. Because even though now we got 300 columns, which is something very exotic and probably not very standard, but technically speaking, we got 300 columns. The first one spans 100, the second one 100. So in reality, the proportions remain the same, right? That's why if you want to have all the columns with the same width, to me that's smelly, right? Don't do that. Why 100? I mean, who did that, right? Who did that? No, just keep it simple. One.
They depend on each other.
They depend on each other, of course. They depend on each other. So again, if the boxing has flex 2, you see, it gets bigger. And obviously, because you know that already, I can come to the browser and I can change it to 3. You see? Right. So this is one of the most fundamental principles using flexbox. First of all, on the parent, display flex. And then on the children, by default, put flex 1. And then if you want to make any box bigger, then change that one. Change the flex for that box, right? Any questions so far? Yeah?
So basically, there's no need to use clear fix and...
No, not anymore, not anymore. No. So that clear fix thingy, what Shandon is talking about, that probably no one else heard about that before. So Flexbox is a new thing. It's very powerful, but it's new. Before Flexbox, technically speaking, it was still possible to do that, but it was way more complicated. And I'm not going to explain that, right? Because it doesn't make sense. If now there is a simpler way to do the things, right? Let's leave it there. Cool. Right, so that was the first thing, using Flexbox. Now I would like to talk about mobile. Because even though that's correct, let me put it back to Flex 1, right? Let's keep it easy. Flex 1, so all the boxes have the same width, that's fine. But now, if we're on mobile, let me show iPhone X, for example. Oh, that's horrible, right? That's not what we want. It doesn't look good on mobile. It doesn't look good. So in reality, we want on mobile, so each box to have 100% of the width. So they should be displayed one after the other for usability reasons, right? So how do we do that?
Flex direction.
Sorry?
With flex direction column on the child.
Okay, I'll go to that point in a minute. I like that. That's probably the most elegant way. But I'm going to do first something very rudimentary. So do you remember what we did to put the 3 items on the same row?
They made it responsive.
No, we haven't done any responsiveness thingy yet. So before that, do you remember, tell me which line here? Correct, that one. Thanks to that line, the elements are on the same row. So in reality, if we're on mobile, what we want literally is to revert that. So on mobile, look, you see? So in other words, display flex is perfect for desktop, but we don't want it for mobile, right? So the question is, how do we revert that? In reality, look, if you don't know which property rolls it back, what you can do, go to DevTools, and when it says display flex, click on it, delete it, and look, you can overwrite it. You can use another one that does the trick. You see, some of them that do the trick. My suggestion is to use display block, because display block is like the default. It's like the classic way to revert display flex, right? And makes sense, display block. Each element is one block fitting all the available space on that row, regardless of the size of your screen.
So how would that look on desktop display?
Correct. How? You'll tell me. If I display on desktop, how will it look like?
The same way.
The same.
That will use the media query.
Exactly. Look, you see, this is desktop, this is mobile. This is desktop, this is mobile. On mobile, I like it because it's definitely something usable. But in desktop, it's like, hey, this is such a waste of space, right? I don't want to put them one after the other. I want to put them on the same row. That's why we want to do display block just for mobile, the media query. Do you remember how to do a media query? Right? Here. So if we do something like that, we say, hey guy, now we want to target mobile. How do we know that? Because ignoring all these semantics, eventually, that's the important bit. It says, hey, apply whatever I put here just if the width of the screen is below 500 pixels. So if you pay attention, if I go back to iPhone X, can you tell me which is the native horizontal resolution of the iPhone X? Correct. You see that here? So an iPhone X has 375 pixels width. So that means that whatever I put here will be okay, right? Because 375 is below 500, right? So then you'll tell me, how do I change that? What do I need to put here in order to apply display block just for mobile, not for desktop? Display flex, right? Display flex. So that's a bit weird, right? That's not working because first of all, you need a class first. So Alex is right. So this is like a box where you can create new CSS rules, but you need to repeat the same strategy, right? So you need to make a reference to which class do you want to change for mobile, right? So now that this looks better because you said, hey, if the resolution is below 500, then on the container, display what? Block. Perfect. You see? So now on mobile, it looks perfect. And what happens if I go back to desktop? Will it be like that or will it be in one row? Why not? Oh. Exactly. Don't forget that the media queries, they don't know if you are using a phone, a tablet, they just understand pixels, right? 500. In reality, even though for you this is desktop, look at the resolution of the screen. Look, you see? You see? Less than 500. But what will happen eventually? 500. Look. Getting close. Boom. You see? So I think this is a good balance. Because now, if you have a huge screen, it looks good. And if you have a very small screen, like a mobile, not necessarily mobile. I mean, I could be using a tablet, correct? Even desktop, right? What if I want to keep my Chrome browser in a corner of my screen? That's still usable, right? Right. So that's the first way to change the layout using Flex. But as Alex was suggesting, there is an alternative that, in my opinion, could be a bit more elegant. And this is just a personal feeling. You may not agree, but let's see an alternative. Instead of changing the way to use display, we can do something. Let me revert that. By definition, Flex applies some rules, even if we don't explicitly declare them, right? It's like color, for example. Why the text is white? I never said text white, but browser, Chrome, has to paint the color for the text, right? So Chrome decided to paint the text color in white. Fair enough. So the same applies to flexbox. So by default, even if you don't explicitly say anything, the browser will apply some flexbox rules. I'll give you an example. The first one is the direction of your boxes. So under the hood, look at what's going on. You can declare a new property called flex direction, which is row. So this is the default behavior. So that means that by default, you can print everything in one row. That's the default behavior of Flex. Actually, if we pay attention to the Chrome, to the browser, I would like to prototype what Flex directions offers to us. Let's have a look. Container. Again, I'm going to delete row. Look, you see, we can select column, column reverse, inherit, initial, row, row reverse. So what happens if I select column? Exactly. You see? So we don't really have to change from display block to display block. We can change the flex direction, which in my opinion is more readable, right? Flex direction row, flex direction column. What happens if I select the next one, column reverse? Correct. Look, you see? We can change the order of the elements, literally changing the flex direction. You know row already because of default, and then row reverse. Do the same, but keeping everything in a single row. So based on that, you will tell me, what do I have to do here to make sure that on mobile it still looks good like that, but without changing the display property of the container? Flex direction, what? Column. Correct. You see? So now on mobile it looks correct. On desktop, if I make the screen bigger, it looks correct. You see? Mobile, desktop, mobile, desktop. Any question? No? That's a good question. That's a really good question. Do we have to copy display flex here? Correct. Correct. Why? Because in reality, this is an extension. So for desktop, these are the rules that are applying. For mobile, is that plus this. So everything gets applied. Obviously, we could change that. Look, we could do something a bit strange. We could have min width here, right? So if you change to min width, these properties will apply just for desktop, these properties will apply just for mobile, and these properties will apply for everything, right? To me, this is a bit strange. Because, for example, if you change the background color of your web app, usually you want to change it for mobile and for desktop, right? So generally speaking, it's good to have a common set of rules, and then you specifically override the ones that affect mobile. I think it's fair to say that now maybe you heard about something called mobile first development, right? So mobile first development means to change the attitude a bit. Instead of starting the example on desktop, we start on mobile. So that means that we'll never have that. It will be on the other way around. So with mobile first development, the first thing we do is, by default, everything affects mobile. And then we'll do the necessary changes for desktop. Let's do that. So using mobile first, we don't care about desktop yet. So this is what we got, right? We don't have any media query, we don't have anything, right? And then, because we're happy with mobile, let's pay attention to our 25% of users who are still using a laptop or a desktop. So if I go back to desktop, it doesn't look good. So now it's time to do whatever we need to do in order to make sure that on desktop it looks good. So you'll tell me, what do we have to change now? Min width, correct, correct. So now it's on the other way around, right? We say, hey, if the resolution is above 500, then what? Do what? Flex direction row, moving is right. Flex direction, not MS, sorry. Thank you for nothing. Flex direction row. Exactly, right? See, mobile, desktop. So, technically speaking, this is supposed to be better. Why? because mobile is trendy. We got more users on mobile than on desktop. So I would recommend you actually to do that. I think it's a good idea. And also that will go in your CV. I've been doing mobile first development, right? This is a very powerful message to the employer. Right? I know it's a bit more complicated, especially for people like me that has been doing the other way around for 14, 15 years, right? It's a bit, but I think for you it's now a good timing to start following this pattern.
I always imagine both layouts at the same time.
Okay.
In my head.
Yeah, but okay, then but
It's a bit difficult after you start working on desktop.
yeah,
Then to try and think the other way around,
Yeah.
starting from the mobile
I know.
layout and then
Yeah,
set it on.
but that's a classic thing in software, right? It's like you learn React, and maybe in 5 years' time there will be a new library, more powerful. You have to adapt to the new trends, new technologies, right? That's what it is. Cool. Last thing for today. Let's talk about better way to organize our layout. So what's the problem at the moment? At the moment, we got 3 martial arts, right? But in reality, what happens if we have 6? So now I need your help, Mr. King. Tell me what. Wrestling.
Just for BJJ.
Yay.
BJJ.
B. Yay.
No.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, like that?
Yes.
What's that?
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Okay, cool. One more?
Just for kickboxing.
Kickboxing. Cool. Something like that? Well, anyway, let's bring that this is the example, right? So what's the problem? Even though now we're in desktop mode, that doesn't look right. That's horrible, right? So at some point, mentally speaking, what we want is to move wrestling to a new line, right? Because we got plenty of space here, but in reality we're ignoring it, right? We are so obfuscated to display everything in one line, but that doesn't work that well, right? And obviously you can have multiple rows, and you know that already, right? So what happens if I do div class name equals container? So now I can put it here, and in reality that looks better. Now it's more usable. But then what happens if I got a 89 inch screen, right? If you have a huge screen, in reality, you want to move everything to one row because you still got a lot of space, right? So how do you make it dynamic? How do you make sure that depending on the resolutions, I will have 1 element on the first row, 2 elements, 3, 100 elements, it will depend, right?
Next step,
Correct, let's do that.
no, we want that.
Yes, so the first thing is I want to keep 1 row, because in reality, the number of rows will be dynamic. It could be 1, could be 2, could be 20. We don't know, right? And then, so the next step is, that's very important. By definition, Flex will never attempt to move elements to a new row. In that particular scenario, I clearly want wrestling to be on a second row, clearly. That's pretty obvious. But Flexbox will never attempt to do that. So the first thing, we need to do 2 things. The first thing we have to do is tell Flex wrap equals to wrap. Here, look at the change, right? So with flex wrap equals to wrap means, hey guys, if you think that we got too many elements in one row, take it easy and move them to a new one, right? So now it's a bit better, right? You can clearly see it's a bit better. And now, depending on the resolution, you see, 4, 3, 1. Well, we got 1 because of mobile. Let me get rid of mobile, because we're going to do that in a different way shortly. Ignoring mobile. Sorry, because we did the mobile first thing. Let me go back to flex direction row, like that, right? So you see now, we got, I think we can even have 6. Yeah, so you got 6 elements. If there is a space, enough space. And then if I open DevTools, if DevTools works, thank you for nothing again, expect, right? So then if the screen gets smaller, I got 5 elements. If the screen gets smaller, I'll get 4, then I'll get 3, then I get 2, and then I get 1. Right? So that's the first thing. With Flex Wrap, immediately you see the difference, that it behaves better. However, it's not perfect yet, right? Because we don't really have control on which is the minimum size of the box in order to decide to move it to a new line. We don't have that control. So look at this example. It's a bit complicated to see, but each box has a different size. You see, this is not a line. They don't stick to the same virtual column, right? Why? Because each box has a different size. Look, 137, 137, 137, but in here, 132, 132, 146, right? So depending on the content of the box, Flexbox may decide to use a different sizing. So to help on that, we can use a new property on the item called flex basis, and I'm going to put a number here, and I'll tell you what that number means. So with flex basis, and I think I'm missing the pixels in this particular case. So now we're telling the boxes could be as large as possible, no problem. But then if their size goes below 150 pixels, then give up. If the boxes get that small, 150 pixels, then start moving things down, right? So let's see what happened now. Let's increase the size of the screen. So now you can see that boxes are, the alignment is way better, right? So, and if you notice the size of the box, so this is, you see, 156. If I make it slightly smaller, 152, right? So that's still above the threshold. But as soon as this size goes below 150 pixels, that box will be moved to a new line. Let's try that. So you'll see, yeah, you see, 152, but immediately in a second, it's like, okay, it goes below 150, okay, new line, right? Because it's moved to a new line, instead of 3 elements, now we got 2 elements on each row. And the same thing will happen again, right? So now what's the size of the box, of each box? 234. We still got some room, some space, right? Smaller, 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 eventually, right? 197, so keep going, keep going. You see the alignment now is perfect. We got a perfect grid now. 176, still okay. Right, still okay. 154, so in a second, look, boom, that's it, right? So what's the benefit of this strategy? Do we have to change anything for mobile? Do we need to apply any particular styling for mobile? No. Look, right, well, maybe 150 is not the best number, but definitely we can play around. What happens if you 180? You see? Why we don't have to apply any style for mobile? Because Flexbox automatically understands that there is no space enough to display 2 elements of 180 pixels with each in the same row. So Flexbox will automatically rearrange them. And what's the side effect? That now, if we have a small screen, instead of having 3 or 6 elements or 1 element, I have 2. If the screen gets better, gets bigger, I have 3. If the screen gets bigger, I will have 4, and so on, right? So that makes sure that regardless of the size of the screen, the layout will be efficient, because you'll always have as many boxes as possible on a screen. Questions?
So, you know, if you use a mobile display,
Yep.
you want to see networks, what happens if you allow horizontal?
The flexbox. So you want to keep the mobile rule here.
Yeah, but instead of having it small top and down low,
Yep.
you flip it so it's horizontal, so it's landscape.
It's right. Let's try that. So what happened? So what he's suggesting is, what happened if I turn the device, which we can do it. You see, rotate. Right. So, yep. So technically speaking, it still works. Obviously, we have to play with the dimensions, right? So what happens if we change that a bit? 250 pixels. You see? So you'll see that in CodeFlix shortly. So actually, I can show you. Oh, sorry. Let me open CodeFlix, and until it loads. So you see that if my phone is on landscape mode, I got 3 elements on each row. If I rotate it to portrait, I got 1, which is good, right? Because we're making an efficient usage of the available space. I would like to show you how this looks like in CodeFlix. Before that, please remember, I really like this article. That's the way I learned to use Flexbox. This is on the GitHub issue. Most of the GitHub issues you play with Flex. You got that link. Anyway, I'll share it on Slack now for reference purposes. So here, the reason why I really like this article is because it has lots of pictures, right, and diagrams. So you remember flex direction? We explained that thing, right? The flex grow, which is the flex property that we use as well. So definitely, I mean, to be honest, this could get very complicated, right? How to deal with the gaps on the screen, you know. But take this as a reference because I think it's a really good article. And now thinking about CodeFlix, you see, so in here we got 2. This is literally the same example, right? So we got 2 covers on each row. But if we go mobile, you see, we got 1 cover on each row. But if let's try with iPad, because I think with iPad is very easy to detect. You see, with iPad we got 2. If we turn the iPad, we got 3. That's responsive design, right? And this has been built literally following what we just been talking about. Any question? No? Yes? Cool? Was it good? Useful? Cool? Thank you for the feedback, guys. I'll upload the video to YouTube now. Cheers.
Cheers.